of the time attorney and vice state lawyer Alejandra Ruda heard on the bigot and against Semitic graffiti scrawled through the high school building in Ashburn, Loudonshire, Virginia. She suspected the culprits were family. This graffiti was racially loaded. They had hairspray painted swastikas and phrases love, whites force and tan force, she recalls. Yet down there were as well images of dinosaurs, females' breasts and penises. And I mind, that doesn't see love the job of subtle KKK human beings out to frighten, it looks more than love the job of mute younger generation. Her instinct proven proper. 5 family elderly 16 and 17 were detained for the criminality and pleaded those guilty to 1 calculate of destroying of individual characteristic and 1 calculate of illegal accession. The younger generation were ignorant of the importance of the house they had corrupted. It was the Ashburn Color High School, an historical house how had been utilized by dark family for segregationist in Northern Virginia. The attorney believes the family were fair kicking out versus credibility following one of them had been sent of his high school, but she understands why the city was so stunned by the criminality. This society blew up. Clearly. But you aware, several of the guys didn't though aware which a filfot intended. So I saw a training prospect. In family, you can each penalize or you can exonerate, and these were guys in no preliminary recording and I mind behind to which learned me while I was there year, which outdoor my eyes to some cultures and confessions, and it was read. The magistrate in the instance accepted the attorney's procedure, how the younger generation should be presented downward a read verdict, or propensity as a verdict is named in youthful cases. Alejandra Ruda drew up a listing of 35 books and ordered the offenders to select 1 name a monthly for a year and to compose an appointment on every of the 12 books they chose. The titles turned on Elisa Goer's The Color Crimson, My Behalf is Asher Left by Haim Potok, I Aware Why the Caged Poultry Sings by Maya Angelou, Cry the Favorite Nation by Alan Payton and Khaled Hosseini's The Paper Kite Begun. Possessing grown up in Mexico in a 2 languages literature household, her mom was a high school librarian. Alejandra Ruda says she owes her own culture and race knowledge to specific books her mom ordered. Her mom was established her daughters should aware on the genocide, race hate and the implications of keeping superstition relying on racing, religious or ethnic origin. I had no concept on apartheid in Southward Africa before I recite Alan Payton and how fair blew my reason, I had no formation at all on apartheid, she says. Also, I knew anything on Israel before I recite Outcome by Leon Uris. So those books had to go on my read listing, and I as well added classical literature everyone should aware, Love to Murder a Hummingbird. The magistrate was wide praised for hard to bring up the adolescents out of their abusive behavior, but several members of the dark society wrote letters of appeal to regional and domestic newspapers disputing how younger generation of color would never include been purified so indulgently. In reality, time no of the offenders was dark. Alejandra Ruda says 3 were of ethnical sexual minorities. Or the verdict was in no way mild, she argues. These guys had no preliminary recording, so down there was no way they were departure to get a depository verdict at a penitentiary. This verdict I gave was tougher rather than which they would usually include acquired. Usually it would fair be internship that would indicate check-in a internship official 1 day a monthly and perhaps a few several hours of society facility and written a email to say disappointed. There they had to compose 12 assignments and a 500 speech experience on race hate and a tribute in the background of which they'd made. It was a lot of job. All 5 of the younger generation effectively finished their read and spelled assignments on in obligatory visits to the Genocide Monument Museum in Washington and the Museum of Us Stories artifact on Japan-American internment camps in the U.S. 2 years after, no has reoffended, and all are yet in formation. The younger generation lawyers say their families were confused by their silly trick and how the verdict had its designed impact. No of the offenders was readily to offer an interviewing on their expertise, but one coordinated how the finding of his definitive experience could be shared. I scientific a lot of written the document on how things can include an effect on human beings. I had no concept on how to depth the darkest components of humane story go. I recall meeting in story grade and training on the type of material in Love 2 days and later driving on the following 1 week, and I mind how was how. I never very looked profound in which went on, since a greater portion of me very didn't wish to aware the horrors. I mind a Philfot was fair a character, and it didn't very indicate lot, not any more than. I was incorrect, and it intended a lot to human beings who are struck by them. It reminds me of the lowest things, loser household members and friends, of the ache of torment, mental and natural, amongst how it reminds them how odious human beings can be and how the planet can be brutal and unjust. Swastikas are as well a remind of suppression, not creature heard and creature stored downward on the land. Swastikas are as well a mark of white's force, how their racing is over all else, that is not the instance. Human beings should not sense less than rather than which they are, and no should do them sense how path. I sense particularly terrible following written the document on how I done nobody sense poor. All should be purified in equity, no question their racing or religious or sex attitude. I will do my top to see to it how I am never the clueless once again. While she reaches the definitive verdict, Alejandra Ruda, who has been read it out to me, abruptly crushed downward and burst into tears. It makes me scream, she tells me. Yet it makes me sense large since he got it. It treated. She wipes her eyes on a kerchief. It treated, she says once again, resolutely. Or depository sentences dong ti job. Okay, several guys include to be in arrest since they are hazardous to community or to by themselves, but for the largest portion, arrest can be really trauma, and how is not the goal of the penal judiciary framework while it comes to family. She beating her nasal. See, I aware I dong ti audio love a attorney there, but how is not which I aim to do in family. That is why I requested to be as artistic as probable in the instance. In reality, Loudonshire has consumable the history year overhaul its youthful judiciary framework. Alejandra Ruda sits on one of the distraction committees and hopes how read and competence will now be regularly utilized in the courts of Loudonshire. Her read propensity has already been utilized in else instance while a 13-year-old boy was found those guilty of menacing behavior and racially humiliating a dark kid. He was as well condemned to a read listing, though the titles choose were more than relevant for his age team. We include to bring up guys out of darkness, says Alejandra Ruda. Or in family, our attention has to be on rehab and not vengeance if we wish results. You may as well be concerned in, while Ilex Dawson located a chirp on a rainmaker who left word 2 homes to be let cheap to difficult up human beings in her countryside, it went virus. But down there were as well lot cynics who throw question on the history. She thick felt in force to verify it of.